Good afternoon, okay, I'm gonna start calling you guys my subscribers. Instead of saying you guys, I'm gonna call y'all amazlings. Isn't that cute? It's a cute name, right? You know, like how K-pop groups have their fan club names, like the Blackjacks for 21, Wonderfuls for the Wonder Girls. I'm gonna call you guys amazlings. Is that okay? Okay. Hi, amazlings. It's Friday, and it was such a beautiful day today. It was so nice all day. It was like too hot outside, and then suddenly it just got all dark and depressing, and now it's starting to rain. But you know, your girl do enjoy a little storm every now and then. But anyway, today I didn't go to school. I took today off because I had to take my senior exit exam. Woo woo. Yeah, I don't know how I did on that. Oh, whatever. Don't matter. But yesterday, this guy, oh my god, this guy came from another university, and he was doing observation hours because, you know, in most teaching programs you have to observe class. Like for every education class you take, there's usually a required like 10 hours of observation or something like that. At least that's how it is for my school. But so he was doing some observation hours for one of his classes, and so he had observed my class all day, and I'd started talking to him, and he was so obnoxious. Like, I just couldn't believe half of the things that he was saying, and I was like, is this real life? Like, okay, so I was talking to him, you know, and I was asking him, you know, where he's from, and, you know, what he plans to teach, all that, you know, kind of typical conversation that most teacher candidates have with each other. And he was like, oh, well, he's like, well, I'm from up north, so I grew up in a private school. I went to private schools all my life, so to be in a public school like this is just really different. It's just really interesting to see how different it is. And I'm just like, oh, okay. And he's like, yeah, like some of these, or what he said, he's like, I was actually really surprised to see so much diversity here. You know, I expected, you know, this is Kentucky, so I expected, you know, not to see so many Caucasian and African American people as well as Mexicans. And, you know, I'm just really surprised by all the diversity here. And I'm just like, where the heck do you live, bro? Like, why are you surprised to see diversity of people? This is freaking America. Like, is this real life? And so then he's like, there was just so many different little conversations, and I just can't. I just can't. Like, I'm just gonna just repeat all the things I can remember him saying. And at one point he was like, well, some of the kids, because the school I go to, I think that county has kind of behavioral issues. In one of the classes, in every class there's always like 2 or 3 kids who are always off task and just sit there and do nothing and are always disruptive and stuff. And so every time, like, there would be, our first period we have like 3 like really disruptive kids in there who are really bad, and like first period's kind of our worst behaved class, and the second period is our gifted and talented class, so they're all really smart and they're all really well behaved and everything. And then third period's all right, and sixth and seventh period, they both have their few students who are off task and disruptive, and those classes as a whole are usually kind of more rambunctious than the others, but overall they're all right behavior wise. But anyway, so in each class period he kept pointing out all the kids who weren't doing anything, and he just kept talking about them, like, oh, this kid over here at table number 5, and the kid over there at table number 2, and the kid over at table 3, they're just sitting there not doing anything. And you know, in my school, in the private school, this would never happen. I would never see such behaviors like this. They would just be kicked out instantly, and it doesn't matter if you're paying to go to school. They don't tolerate those things. So, you know, you would never see any of these kids speaking out, and he's just going on and on, talking about my kids. I'm talking about my kids. Like 3 weeks ago, I probably would have been like, oh, I know these kids bad, they get on my nerves, but now they're my kids, and I don't appreciate some stranger talking about them the way he was talking about them. And then he told me, he was like, you know, my elementary and middle and high school, it cost me more to go to my elementary. Then he was like, it cost me more to go to my elementary, middle, and high schools than it's cost me to go to college. Like, that's how expensive my private schooling was. And I was like, oh my God, I don't care about your private school life. Like, shut up. And oh, back to the diversity thing. He was telling me about how, you know, he was like, oh, I'm so surprised to see such diversity here, da 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 da. And I was like, oh, what'd you expect? Since we're in Kentucky, you expect like a bunch of like, hey y'all, how you doing, country people or something? And he was like, well, yeah, but I'm actually surprised to see that the African American people talk that way here too as well. But you know, where I'm from, in my high school, we only had 2 African American students there, and everyone else was mostly upper middle class Caucasians, and we just had 2 African American students in my school. And you know, the city where I'm from, you have to ask African American people to enunciate and speak slowly when they talk. So I'm really surprised to see African American people talking this way. And I was like, is this fool for real right now? Is this real life? And Chelsea, what else did he say? And he was like, we've only had 2 African American students in our school, and then slowly more and more families started to move in, and we were like, oh no, no, no. And I was like, okay. And I'm like, is this full for reals? Oh my gosh. And so 5th period is kind of like an intervention class, and it was the last day of this class, so we just went outside and kind of had a fun day with them. And there's one kid in this class, I don't know what his ethnicity is. He looks like he's either like Hispanic or Asian of some sort, maybe like Filipino or something, but I'm not really sure what his ethnicity is. But he's the only one. All the other kids in that class are white, and then there's one black girl in the class, and then there's this kid who's Asian / Hispanic-y looking. I'm not sure what he is. But we went out to the soccer field because we had these little like badminton rackets and like little horseshoe stuff, because we were going to be demonstrating Newton's laws of motion. That was our lesson plan for the day, but in a fun way. But the kid, he had found a soccer ball, and then the guy was like, oh look, the one like Asian or Hispanic kid, he would be the one to find the soccer ball. And I'm like, oh yeah. I'm like, oh my gosh, what the heck is this guy's problem? Is he really saying these things right now? And later in class, in one of our later classes, there's one student, she's one of the usually disruptive ones, but for some reason yesterday she was just extra over the top. Like the past few weeks she's been pretty chill, but yesterday she was just a little extra over the top. I don't know what was going on with her, but she was, as I said to him, because he was talking about the kids in the class again, like, oh, this girl and that girl and this girl, they're not doing anything. They seem, you know, that they're not behaved well, and da-da-da. And I was like, well, yeah, this girl, I was telling him, like, this girl, her behavior is usually a little bit better than this. I don't know what's really going on with her today. She's a little cray-cray today, I had said. And he was like, oh, that's the exact African-American slang I would use to describe her behavior right now. And I was like, did he really just say African-American slang? Because I said cray-cray. Oh, and this dude was just too much. And I was just like, oh my gosh. Yeah, this dude, he was just like, I don't know. You may have spent $1 billion at your prep school, but that school did not teach you any freaking culture. Why are you so stunned to see diversity in a school? Like, is this real life? Is this real life? Oh, he was just so obnoxious. I just couldn't deal.